welcome back to our channel. Today we are diving into one of the most notorious haunted houses in America. And I'm not joking. It's terrifying. It's the worst. I don't even know why I'm covering this. I'm just doing it because we all like to be scared. And so let's just go old school, scary American horror story called the Amityville Horror. Now, this story is in two parts, really. There's a true crime story, and there is a demonic house possession haunting story, which is what all the movies are made about. So I'm going to cut it up in two, and then there's actually kind of a third, but I think I'm going to put it in the second video, which is, I like to call it the psychic party. And it's a bunch of psychics and a news channel and a bunch of cameramen and a bunch of people went at the end of both of these stories to spend the night in the house to see like what was up. And let's just say it didn't end well. It didn't end well. None of this that I'm about to tell you ends well. I'm so sorry, but we got to get in it. Welcome to 1112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, otherwise known as the Amityville Horror Story. So, every horror story starts with something amazing, right? So we're just going to start at the beginning. The beginning of the story is about the DeFeo family, who was an Irish Catholic, I can't talk, family living in Brooklyn. And Luis and Ron DeFeo, who they called Big Ronnie, they got married and her dad didn't really like him, so they cut off ties. But then they had their first son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., who was then known as Butch. And then the family kind of got back in contact. So Ronnie Sr., Big Ronnie, starts working for Louise's dad. He owns a car dealership. He's like managing the service or something similar to that. And, you know, things are going well. And so they start having more kids and their little apartment in Brooklyn starts to get a little more crowded. And the father-in-law is like, you know what, I'm going to buy you a house. Like, you guys deserve it. I'm going to buy you a house in a little seaside town called Amityville. And he did. And this house, if you can imagine your dream house, it's 3 stories, 6 bedrooms. It's on a river. It's on the Amityville River. You have your own pool, you have a boathouse, and you have your own private dock. So it's like your head explodes with possibility, you know? And they, at this point, kids, by the time they move in, they have 5 kids. So they have 6 bedrooms. Now they have enough room for everybody, and like, their dreams can come true. So Mr. DeFeo, Big Ronnie, he's so excited. He calls it High Hopes, this new house in Amityville. High Hopes. Puts it on a sign. High Hopes. Puts it in front of the house. Why does stuff like this always happen? So here we have our house of high hopes. And let's talk about the family a little, the DeFeo family. So apparently Big Ronnie was a nightmare. He was a monster. He would verbally and physically abuse his family. On the outside, they looked amazing. They looked like they were living the American dream. Beautiful kids, beautiful family, beautiful life. Everything's going great. But friends that were interviewed said they didn't like going to that house. None of the kids' friends wanted to go to the house. You want to know why? Because Big Ronnie would all of a sudden like smack Luis like in front of people, like for whatever. And as it got like moved on in age, the kids, Butch DeFeo Jr., he starts getting a little like cuckoo, like he starts doing a bunch of drugs and a bunch of alcohol. And I don't mean like recreational drugs. I mean like LSD, like he's on a spree of drugs and alcohol. And everybody said, you know, it kind of makes sense because he was sort of the one that Ron Sr. abused the most. So the mom, Louise, and Butch got the worst of the beatings, the worst of the verbal abuse. I guess he was also bullied at school. So, you know, on the outside, they're looking great. On the inside, they're looking like people don't want to go there. So let's just get in it. On September, November 13th, 1974, Butch kills his entire family while they're sleeping. Mom, dad, they were both 43. Sister Dawn, 18. Sister Allison, 13. The 2 boys who were 9 and 13. Mark and, I can't remember. Sorry, Chris. Mark and Chris or something like that. Anyway, while they're sleeping, he kills his entire family. And you know what's really weird about it? Everybody was laying face down. So are they a bunch of stomach sleepers? Like how, like the police didn't understand. They were like, why, like, were they positioned like that? Did he drug them at dinner? Like, it seemed like no one fought and everyone died peacefully. There was no silencer on the gun. Why didn't people jump up and like run and try and save themselves? The neighbors didn't hear anything. So the police are just baffled that no one woke up and no one fought back, and that they were all sleeping the same. So I think that's weird. Everybody sleeps different, even if you're in the same family. So I don't also understand that. So now everyone's murdered. Ron did it, Butch did it, and he takes a shower and he goes to his job. So this happens at between 3 and 4 in the morning. He goes to the job at the dealership, right? He's pretending everything's fine, like, oh, I don't know where Dad is. Oh, I can't get in touch with my family. So he's telling his friends, oh, I can't get in touch with my family. So he keeps like making that point. So he goes to his job for a while. Then he goes to his friend's house for a while, sees his girlfriend. Then he goes to the local bar, just very early evening. And he starts panicking. He's like, somebody killed my family. You guys have to go back with me. Like, my whole family's dead. I think it was a mob hit. Like, help, help, help. And apparently the bar patrons were like, that's not funny, man. Like, that's not a funny joke. Like, why, who would even say that? And then they realized he was not joking. I don't know why the police didn't go. I don't know why these people from the bar, maybe because they were drinking, they go with him. They go to the house. And guess what? The whole family's murdered. So they call the police. The police comes. They do everything. They listen to Ronnie. It's very suspect, but they listen to him. And he's like, it's a mob hit. We used to have this mob guy living with us because his house burned down. And he threatened the family. And like, there's 20,000 missing, which actually turns out Ronnie stole the 20,000 and his dad knew. But he's like claiming mob, mob, mob. So the police are like concerned. They don't really know what's going on. So they actually put him in jail for the night just to protect him, like to keep him away, just to make sure nothing happens to him. I guess the grandfather comes. I think Luis's father comes, and he sees Ronnie. He's like, you need to confess right now. You know you did it. Confess right now. And he does. He confesses to the murders. His whole family, the entire family. But that changes. So he confesses now, but that's going to change about 5 to 6 times throughout his death, until his death, which was about a year and a half ago. He died in prison, thank God. So he tells them that it just happened so fast. It happened so fast and he couldn't stop himself. And he says that this is one of the defenses. Demons commanded him to kill his family. Okay, so that's one thing that he said. That's actually what the lawyer stuck on. He's mentally not well. Demons told him to do it. There's nothing that he could do. He was commanded, done. And the jury was like, no. So the jury gave him like 25 life sentences per person. So like, obviously he was never going to get out of prison, thank God. But he did die in prison. So at least, I mean, he died with all the secrets. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but he did not ever get out of prison, obviously. But then he says, this is just throughout his time in prison. He says, you know what? It wasn't me. My mom did it. Like, my mom snapped and she killed everybody. Okay, and then you killed her. So that was one. Then he says, my sister Dawn had this older boyfriend out of state and my parents were mad and she convinced me to kill our parents. And so I did. And then I went outside to collect myself because I just killed my parents. And then I heard all these gunshots and I ran back in and Dawn killed all of our siblings. And so then he says he had to kill Dawn in self-defense. That's my favorite. I'm like, really? Really? Okay. Then he says, obviously the mob hit. Oh, and then there's one of a hooded woman. Like a hooded with a black hood that came through and like killed the whole family. So years later, there was, I guess the house was under surveillance because they did have mob ties. And this DEA guy told some reporter, he's like, you know, I had the house surveilled and there was a woman with a black hood that came out of the house that night, threw a shotgun in a car and left. So I don't know. There are so many rumors like going around this story. There's so many people saying so many different things. The police don't understand how he could have done it on his own and why no one fought. But it happened. It happened. At this point, it doesn't matter. This is the beginning of that story. And then the next story that we're going to go into is the next family who moves into the house and the haunting of that house. because Butch said that there were demons telling him what to do, either the family, the Letts family, who moves in a year later, who gets the house at a bargain price of $80,000, either they were going to make some money off this, or they had no idea what they were about to encounter, and all hell breaks loose, and all hell does break loose, to the point the Amityville story, first of all, it was one of the best horror movies in the 1970s, which spun off a lot of horror movies. Anyone who saw that as a small child, or saw that at all in the 70s, if you say Amityville, you don't even have to say horror, just Amityville, they're like, duh, 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 duh. It's like Jaws. Like, people still, when they saw Jaws as a kid, they don't want to swim in the water because they know a great white's out there and he's probably going to get them. This is the same thing with horror movies. Nobody wants to talk about Amityville. Nobody wants to go to Amityville. No. Okay, so that was part 1 of our Amityville horror story. The next video is going to be the demonic possession and haunting of 1112 Ocean Avenue, which, by the way, they have changed that address now because it's so infamous around the world. They actually had to change the address. Okay, thank you so much for your support. Everyone, appreciate it so much. Can't wait to tell you the second half of this story. And until then, lock your doors and stay safe. Bye-bye.